What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Building Code. Zach Witovich here.
Charlie Burtwhistle here.
How you been, buddy?
Been well. Been hanging out with you a lot in the office, which has been great.
Yeah. So not so well.
So not so well. We don't have
people got a front row peek of what it's like behind the scenes on the podcast in a meeting yesterday.
Yeah, Zach and I got into a bit of an argument, and everyone was
it was over punctuation use. It was a little aggressive.
No, it wasn't. It was over. You just blatantly said the wrong time of the meeting.
See? Do you see how defensive he gets? It's impossible to get anything done around here.
But the good
we're here to
news
record.
is we're here to record, which means Zach and I are a lot more laid back and friendly
That's
than
right.
we normally are. And
Down.
very special guest in person, Mike Weaver, VP of Sales at Emser Tile. Very excited to have you, Mike. How's it been going?
You know what? It's awesome. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad I could make it in person.
Yeah, we're also very, very glad you can make it in person.
I also want to go on the record and say you're nicer in person than I thought you were going to be.
Oh, well,
In
thank
real
you.
life? Wow.
Keep it up for the next 30 minutes.
Well, you haven't met non-podcast Zach and Charlie.
Yeah.
It's all an act.
Yeah.
It's all a
Oh,
persona.
I can't wait.
We just smile really nicely on the camera, right?
I actually say the same thing, so it's fine.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here in the studio. We love having people in studio, a little different vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
So, we'll kind of keep it conversational, a little more kind of around, the script, if you will. We're throwing that out. No, I'm just kidding. But
Well, that's good. I don't like scripts anyway.
Mike, I always like to ask people, have you been on a podcast before?
I have.
Okay, so you're a veteran.
Quite a few.
You know how this works.
Mostly.
Okay. Yeah, we're here to mix up the formula.
Well, forget everything you know.
Good.
No. We like to always ask our guests, tell us a little bit about your backstory, kind of your story prior to Emser Tile, now VP of Sales at Emser Tile. We like to kind of give people a little context.
Okay. All right, so I'll give you the backstory both personally and professionally. How about that? Okay.
Love it.
Okay, good. So I'll start with Emser. First of all, I've been with Emser Tile for, this is year 18, which I can't believe they've kept me around so long. But that's a fact.
When did that hit?
What?
Like how long is so? It's like year 10. You're like, I can't believe I'm still here. Is it just
year
now?
2?
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, for sure. But let's see, I started out in operations in Reno, Nevada. Technically, I was the operations manager, but at that time, you were like a warehouse guy in customer support, right? So I answered phones and did stuff in the warehouse, et cetera, et cetera. Then I am in role number 9 now as the vice president in 18 years. And I've lived in I live in Dallas now, and this is the 6th state.
Wow.
I've been in Dallas for 4 years, and I don't plan on leaving. So, Emser, if you're listening, don't leave.
Clip it.
Yes, so I've been a branch manager, operations manager, regional operations analyst, the director of operations for the company, regional vice president, and now, of course, the vice president of sales. So that's my Emser story. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
You look like you had a question.
Well, it's just interesting that you were all back of house operational roles and now you're in sales.
I actually think it made me a better sales guy because, once I understood that solving a problem helped you earn more business, I acknowledged I'm very good at solving problems. And we found a lot of success in solving problems. So.
Well, that may
put me here.
maybe shift my career trajectory into maybe sales can be. I'm a lot more on the operational side historically at Buildertrend here. So yeah, maybe I talk
Get
to
this guy a
TK
phone.
and Josh
Well,
and
if you
start
invite
hammering
me,
some dials,
to your wedding, I would buy something. Okay.
like a plane ticket and out of the villa.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
those commissions, bro.
Oh, listen, amen.
Yeah.
Okay, personally, let's see. I'm married. I've been married for 18 years. I actually celebrated my 18th year anniversary on April 1st.
Oh,
which
mazel.
is Monday. It's very cool.
Congrats.
Thank you. I have a 10-year-old daughter who is the love of my life and kind of a terror.
And a baller.
Yes, she's an incredible basketball player. She plays
There you go.
basketball, volleyball, soccer. She played tennis for a little bit and golf.
Awesome. I'm just now connecting the dots. You two must have met each other before.
I didn't want to bring it up. I know it's a sore subject.
I was like, you seem to know a lot
It's
about
only a
it.
sore subject for me because he doesn't answer my calls.
Yeah, I called you back yesterday twice. It went straight to voicemail. No, it's true. I can show you. All right, we're gonna unpack this on the building code. Well, maybe we should. It's now a therapy session in our friendship.
Well, I don't know. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Well, awesome backstory. Very cool to hear.
you.
A little curious now in your current role, VP of Sales. Sounds like you're still doing quite a bit of selling versus managing a team, or what's kind of your day-to-day look like here?
Yeah, so I do a little bit of both. First of all, I manage a pretty large team within our organization, but I like to transparently, I like to lead by example. You know, a lot of our growth over the past at least 2 years specifically has been related to showing people how to do kind of the job that we want them to accomplish in the field. It's a lot more than just selling a product. And I think I like to be the one to teach that.
Yeah, absolutely. And assuming that's part of the reason for the trip to Omaha today or this week.
Well, the team here is very good, but yes, it does offer me an opportunity to give them some tips and tricks.
Yeah, I mean, Mike and I have talked about this quite a bit because he will often, at the engagements where we met, the Contractor Coalition with Brad, Morgan, and Nick, he'll come and talk, and he'll always open up his conversations about Emser Tile, not about Emser Tile, which I love. It's always about, you know, you can find a lot of tile providers, but you're not going to find the relationship that Emser can provide you, and on top of that, a great product as well. So, you know, we brought you on today to talk a little bit about that approach on the sales side of things, about how do you build that sales culture, because sales teams notoriously can have reputations for not being consultative, being a little more like, just buy it, try it, as opposed to, you know, we're not just selling you a product, we're selling you an experience and like everything that goes with it. So where did you learn that? You said it in the operations side, or like when did you?
Honestly, I really have no idea. I mean, I think that I learned that I truly learned that being able to solve a problem helped us win business. Even as an operator, I know that I have a lot of roles that said operations, but I was consistently solving problems, which landed to a lot more business, right? So as I was doing that, I started to learn that customers like that maybe a little more than us selling them a product, right? I usually start, like if I'm given a presentation or a talk or at a speaking engagement, I'll usually say like the most important thing we're going to get out of this is the fact that we know each other, right? And that when you choose, you will choose me and I will choose you. That's the answer. There are a lot of companies that sell product. Matter of fact, there's probably a dozen competitors in this very market that probably do a great job. It's not my job to compete with product.
Yeah. And what I love about the podcast, and Zach and I have talked about this before, is a lot of the interview questions that we ask are applicable across any industry.
Sure.
Like obviously this is a construction-based podcast here, but you're talking about things on the supplier side of things. We're going to get into some questions a bit more on like the home builder side of things. How can they take this approach? But even as you were just talking, Zach and I were kind of looking at each other. We had these same conversations with our sales team here at Buildertrend, selling more consultatively, not just selling a product, but an experience. And like 10 meetings today, we'll be talking about exactly how to do just that. So if you see me jotting some notes down here, I hope you know that I'm getting a lot more out of this other than a podcast recording.
I was in a meeting earlier today with a customer in the local market, and my team does a great job here. They've got a great merchandising presence, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no other way really to grow our business with them from a merchandising or product perspective. But there are things that he isn't doing that we could help him do to grow his business. There's channels of business he's not calling on that we could help him call on, things of that nature that like it's suppliers don't do that. Suppliers supply a product and a price, right? Our job is to be more than that. You know, I actually get offended. I had a good customer of ours call me a vendor once, and I said, that's the exact opposite of what I do for a living.
Yeah. I know one of the things that you mentioned that I want to get a little deeper into is just a different approach depending on who you're selling to or who you're talking to. I don't know, I'm trying not to use sales buzzwords, but what are some of the like pre-qualifying questions, or like how do you go about understanding your customer to start off with, understanding their problems and their needs before you can kind of tailor your
That's a great question.
pitch to them.
This.
Someone else wrote it down for me.
All right, good. So here's the deal. We sell a product. I think most people know that we sell tile, right? And we've got a ton of SKUs. I think 5,000 when I last counted. To be honest, I never bring a sample to my first meeting. I tell most customers that my job is to be educated. I want to understand what you do, how you do it, what you love and what you don't love. My objective is to be the perfect fit for you. And until I understand what that means, I can't do that. Lots of people will bring a product and a price program and things of that nature and think that's going to sell the job. People don't want that. People want to be able to explain what their challenges are and what they need help with and areas that they need help growing in, et cetera. And then I tailor, and actually our company does this so well, we tailor every program to each customer individually once we understand what their challenges are or the products that are important, et cetera. So that's the first thing. I always tell customers up front, my job is to be educated. If you teach us how to be the best supplier, we will be.
How do you balance it? It sounds great, but at the end of the day, you still have to close deals and continue to bring business in. Was there ever any pushback either in like any of your previous roles or the current role you're in now of this taking this more like consultative approach of like, we just need to go and sling a whole bunch of product as fast as possible versus trust me, in the long run, this will end up being, or has everyone kind of been bought in from the start?
No, yeah, the opposite may be. I've had to prove a lot. You know, honestly, it's a different way of selling and connecting with customers. And transparently, most companies aren't used to it. Most companies that sell a product aren't used to this style, but the style garners a lot of business. And, you know, we go from supplying a product on a project to a few products on a project to the entire project, period. And every time that customer has a project, that project is mine.
Yeah. And Zach, I'm actually interested to hear your perspective, like from your consultative days, consulting days. Like, I feel like based on guests that we've had on here, it's kind of the same problem. Like, people say they have an ideal customer they want to work with, and the pre-sales process is really important to them. But at the end of the day, they still need to bring in new jobs. Like, what have you seen across the home building landscape of like how they kind of weigh the balance between those two?
I think a lot of it, my experience is where the maturity. So I was thinking about Emser Tile's been in the business for a century, right? They've been around for a long
1968.
time. 1968. Okay. They're in an old LA building though.
Right.
That was at turn of the century. So I was connecting in my head there.
The old Beacons building.
That's right.
Very cool.
And so if they're an older business, I have found they kind of have that patience, that assumption that they can be selective, right? But they're starting to want to mature their marketing and sales process. So they are interested in building social media, or they, you know, have more or less like they have a strong word of mouth network, but they know that isn't like the right way to do things, or they want to grow it. So it's like, how do I evolve that? Then you have newer businesses who will just take anything, right? And they'll just be like, we'll do the work. We just want to be able to keep the lights on, sort of thing. And as they grow, they start to like eventually either have to decide, do I always want to be in this like take anything mindset, or do I want to actually take control of the reins and establish like an actual process or a sales process? Or it's really interesting talking to a couple of builders that we've had on the podcast. They have very mature sales cycles that has a brand presence, an experience that they're catering to, and they'll turn customers away if the customer doesn't fit those exact details and needs. I don't think that's probably right for everyone, or it just takes a while to like have that confidence. Like, to your point, the way you sell, it's different than just like, we're selling you a house, we'll just deliver it for you. But the best builders that I've seen really like are conscious of those choices, and like, I want to work with even that customer's personality type.
Well, yeah, they think about the experience with that customer. You're married to a customer for a good year if you're building them a custom home, right? And so you have to have a connection. For that matter, there's probably designers and architects involved you also have to connect with, and that takes a lot.
What are some of the best things that, or maybe not best things, but what are some of the ways you combat when you're met with objections? Obviously, this sounds great of selling the experience, but when someone says no, or they don't understand the fit, they don't see the same vision that you do, how do you kind of work through those with them?
It depends on how bad I want the business.
Great answer.
I have a rule, a selling rule it's also part of, I guess, my connection with people is I look for a switch. And I think everybody has a switch. There is something in everyone's purchasing relationship that they wish was better. I'm fortunate because I work for a company that's very flexible and is open to flipping switches if it means it makes sense for us and the customer. You know what I mean? And so honestly, I rarely meet an objection that we can't overcome. As a matter of fact, outside of like being the cheapest in town, because I'm not, right, always, that's probably the only objection I've ever had.
I was just about to ask, what would be the
maybe
most
a pricing objective, or like distance. So we've got some builders that are outside of, we have 78 locations across the country, but we're not in every single market. And I've got builders in markets where we don't have a presence.
Right.
So that has become a challenge before, but honestly, we've built custom programs to support those builders where we ship into their market. And so again, that's rarely an objection, or at least it's not an objection that keeps us from earning the business.
Yeah, and there's your operations background, problem solving, solutioning. Like, oh, you don't have a market here?
I have a cool
that
story. I don't know if time permits. I'm not going to say it.
Time always permits.
Well, I have a cool story that I, when it comes to an example of how we've kind of created something that fit for us and the customer, totally off of the beating path, different than any sales cycle you've ever heard. it really goes to show that it's important to understand where the customer's needs are first and then cater to that need. Again, sometimes samples, product, and price don't do it.
Right.
You know? So anyway, we'll see if we get to it, but I'd be cool to tell you about it.
Well, that is, what is your differentiation value props then? So you have a customer who's price sensitive. I'm curious if we went through a role play, if I was a customer who was like, well, you're not cheaper than your next competitor, right? Mohawk or something. Like what?
Can you say a name?
Oh, I don't know. Cease and desist
Anyway,
letters.
it's okay.
Put them with the rest,
Yeah.
right? But like, what's the talk track that you say?
So first of all, we're the second largest tile company in the country and the largest privately held tile company in the country. There isn't something that someone can do that we can't. The question is, do we choose to do it or not? Right? So that's first and foremost.
Interesting.
Very rarely do we lose a product because of a price. Right. And typically we're doing a whole project. So one price on one product doesn't make much of a difference. You know what I mean? We can always move it somewhere else or capture it another way. Right. We're also looking for a long-term relationship. Very rarely do I have someone come and say, okay, I've got this project. All of my projects have to be $1. It's very rare. But if they have a project that they're on a super tight budget and we have to get crazy, I would rather not give that business to the competition. So I may take one for the team and the rest will be great.
The price.
You know what I mean?
And what I was thinking about too is if you're in business, price is always the consideration. If you're trying to sell someone something, whether it's a house, whether it's software, whether it's tile, right? That's always going to be the number one thing. So it's not a unique problem. And so I think it's interesting to see how people find ways to, I call it, create perceived value that can make up the difference in the willingness to pay of the customer, right? And you can do it through these relationship triggers. You can do it through access to something. You can do it through just discounting and pricing it down. I think the people who typically are really successful in selling actually do the best job of justifying the price rather than trying to like just give away the price to try and win the business.
Yeah, look, I think you almost always have to have a combination of both, right? You're going to have to, if you're super expensive compared to everyone else that's really inexpensive, you're not going to win consistently, right? But if you meet them where they need to be sometimes, and then they understand the value of your relationship and what you bring to the table, then you can command higher prices other times, right? I leverage a lot of connections. Look, I love people, right? And I love connecting with people that are good people. I do business with customers that want to do business with me, and I introduce them to people and they introduce me to people. And we are just consistent. So again, they get to a point where they're no longer worried about us being the least expensive player. We are just the people they want to work with.
Right. Gosh, yeah, that's applicable across everything. Like we've talked about relationships and community building and stuff like that, and something that Buildertrend's actively trying to promote here in the Omaha market. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And
for sure.
At the end of the day, right?
It's very, very true. You know, I met with a customer today, and they were talking about growing their business, and there's a category of business that they don't sell. And they said, well, I want to put it in our showroom and see if we'll get it to sell. I said, well, product, it's not a build it and they will come story, right? Tell me about your business. And he says, well, most of our business is luxury custom homes. I said, great. Every luxury custom home has an outdoor space, right? Yes. Okay. So, well, then instead of trying to cold call a bunch of landscape architects, why don't we meet all of the builders that you work with already and ask them who does their hardscapes and then ask them to give us an introduction. Once they give us an introduction, we will help you find out what they buy and we'll provide it for you. So we've just taken what seems like an insurmountable task, growing this channel of business for a customer, and we're going to leverage all of the people we already know that they already work very closely with. A warm introduction is better than a cold call. And now, right, the rest is history. And that's how we're going to grow that part of his business. And we will both benefit. I'll help him grow his outdoor business, and we will get a crap ton of business from it.
I love that. And I think kind of segueing off that a little bit, but one of the questions you wanted to ask was just the role social media plays in today's kind of digital age. And when we've talked about this with other builders and other marketers before, is developing that same sort of community and connection, but on a much wider, broader scale. Like Zach just named like 10 different peoples that we're like friends with now that we never see in person, but keep up with and follow on like social media and stuff like that. Is that something that you guys are actively pushing too, or how do you kind of view that role in your day-to-day selling landscape?
So I actually really wasn't. And I don't think we were as a company until I think probably the first time I met Zach or even the team from Buildertrend. I don't know if you're at the first coalition, right? Okay. Yep. We really hadn't been. And then I met this group of luxury home builders and remodelers, and they were building a community, and I thought, man, this is a great space for us to be in. And really, it's less about selling product. It's more about finding like-minded people that you want to work with, that will make a commitment to you that you can also make a commitment to. You know what I mean? And that's really what it created. And so it's really just been the last 2 years. Social media has always played a part in marketing a product and things that look pretty, et cetera. But using it to develop a relationship and a network of people that introduce you to people that introduce you to people, it's a bit of a new world for us, but it works very well.
Yeah. You think about 2024, people are kind of burnt out on things that don't feel authentic. So right now, nostalgia is really hot. Authenticity is really hot. And so knowing someone who likes a thing just carries so much more weight when it comes to the traditional sales funnel, which is like group that we want to acquire, demo, sell, right? But the flywheel effect is kind of the new age. And like there's been tons of bigger companies that have mastered this to say, like, if we can get this network to then sell for us, not only does it make it more, I'm getting better leads, my close rates are going up, but ultimately, like, I have to do less work in order to get better customers. And that's the dream, right?
So I have this, look, I wouldn't want my team, and I don't want my team fishing for leads. We know enough people. What we need is the dollar amount, right? If you want me to grow $100 million this year, I'm going to back that into how many customers do we need to find. And I'm going to leverage the relationships we already have to find the customers that will get us to $100 million. I'm not going to create some big lead list and go, beg for business. Although I appreciate new business and love new people, et cetera, right?
A lot of opportunity.
For sure there is, but I prefer leveraging the relationships we have because those customers already understand our value,
right?
And they help us tell that story.
Yeah. Ooh, jinx.
No, I think that's great, and that's like one of the main reasons. Other than I love hanging out with Zach, but like my favorite thing on the podcast is exactly what you're talking about, is meeting people like you. And we have Breakthrough Academy right after this, who we're like formally partnering with, and Aspire. And like we've had some great guests turn into that kind of partner network for us across our business as well, where they're doing the same thing that Zach is talking about, is we're referring them business, they're referring us business, we're growing together, sharing our learnings. And then when it comes time to scaling, you already have those connections established. It's just leveraging them to solve the right problems as they pop up as opportunities.
I'm going to tell you, I had a builder ask me and a local sales rep, to come and spend a few days in their market. And he wanted to introduce us to all of the designers that he works with, who do a bunch of work for a bunch of other builders. And so he spent 2 days in the market meeting all of his design network and the network of people that he's connected with that are connected to so many other people. And we've already picked up projects from almost all of the designers we met with, and we are exclusive now with this builder. And that's worth more than a group of 10 leads that my team has to cold call. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it goes back to having that relationship with the customer so that they want to, right? I didn't ask for them. I mean, I was appreciative, but I didn't ask for it.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I think we're getting close to time here, but I have a couple more questions.
Yeah, for sure.
While we have you here, I want to make sure we're extracting as much info as we possibly can. But another thing that I know we struggle with at Buildertrend, I'm sure other people do too, is like, how do you effectively follow up with leads? People that you've had kind of initial conversation with, didn't close, you maybe made that connection. How do you make that feel organic without it being pushy of like, hey, have you made a decision yet? I'm calling you again. Like, I know you just called me yesterday too. Like, what's the right line to walk there from a friendly versus pushy perspective?
You show up at their house.
You show up at their office.
You call them twice and they don't answer.
Yeah.
Like Zach did to me yesterday.
Straight to voicemail. I thought you just hit ignore.
Whatever.
I was following up.
So, I mean, really, I think it depends. You kind of know from a customer what kind of follow-up they like after the first couple of times you follow up, right? So I've got some customers that say, oh my gosh, I forgot that order was in, and they want to be called as soon as the order gets there, right? Other customers where the sales cycle is longer, the build gets extended, and we'll follow up with them once a month. I don't usually tell my team to stop until the customer says stop. But the frequency in which we follow up is dependent on our relationship with the customer. If they tell us the project's going to be a year, then we won't follow up in 6 months.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm sure that, again, that goes a long way too, because customers, as a consumer myself, I look for that honesty.
Yeah.
They say what they do.
Yeah.
They do what they say. They walk the walk, they don't just talk the talk. So it makes a lot of sense. It's really hard to stay patient you know, in the era of revenue growth, right? Of like, oh, you know, some of these things take time. It takes time for trees to bear fruit, right? It's really, I really just, you know, admire that you have that as a VP to be able to have that patience. And I think for your team who, you know, traditionally on a VP kind of draws the culture line, says this is how we're going to do business, to have the leader doing that probably cascades into the entire organization, which I think is really, really cool.
I think we do. First of all, I appreciate that. Look, at the end of the day, we have a sales expectation, and my team often meets that sales expectation, right? And mostly exceeds it. It doesn't mean that one customer has to move faster. You have to have enough customers so that we can operate at their pace and still reach the level of success we need. And that's the expectation we set. It's not always about a bunch of new acquisition or pushing those customers to take product faster. It's making sure that your book of business is large enough to support what your sales goals are. You know?
I love that. Well, Mike, this has been a fantastic interview. Really.
It has?
Yeah, I think so.
10 out of 10.
One of our best.
I don't think so.
Oh, no. Is it because of us?
Yeah. I mean, like, oh no, did we mess up?
That's because the people watching didn't get to hear what I heard before. No, I'm just kidding. It was great.
They're cheering in the booth. I don't care what Mike's saying. They're just over here like, yeah.
It was great. I loved it.
Before we let you go, of course, you know, we're here representing Emser Tile. So if anyone wanted to contact you or get a hold of Emser Tile, what would be the best way to do that? Plug, shameless plug, sales moment.
I like a plug. So there's a couple of ways. First of all, you can, of course, reach us out on our website. It's just emser.com. I'd also be happy to give you my phone number. I love to make connections. These guys have a way to contact me. So just you can shoot us an email and we'll set you up with a local rep.
Love it. We'll make sure to link that out in our show notes as well, too.
I
love a good show note shout out.
I love it.
Otherwise, Mike, thank you very much. This is great to meet you officially, and really appreciate you making the time in your trip to beautiful Omaha.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. I appreciate it.
Anything else, Zach?
That should do it. This was a great episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining today on the Building Code. Don't forget to check those show notes. Charley and Mike.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Speaking of social media following, you can check out all of us here at Buildertrend Social. Please do. We will catch you next time on the Building Code.
I'm Charley Bertwissel.
And I'm Zach Witowich.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content brought to you by Buildertrend.